Welcome to part 2 of buying and selling your house. What are the steps, Shep, to buying a new home while you have a property to sell?
Well, this is the reverse of selling the home. This is now the buying side of it. And the seller has to now think like a buyer, okay? And so the first thing you have to do is get a proof of financing.
Okay.
And that means taking into account which option you're going to pick with regard to the rental or sale of your house. So that has to be done first, really. And in my other video that we go into all the options, but you have to pick one of them.
Okay.
You have to start somewhere. So you pick an option, what you're going to do with your previous home. Based on that, you get pre-approved by a lender for purchasing your new home. And those two things together add up to your sales price for your new home. You can't even start looking for a house till you know the sales price.
Right. How do people figure out their best option? I mean, we went through a lot of options on the other part 1 of this tape. What are the options?
How you figure it out? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's very simple. Sometimes you only have one option.
Okay.
The lender just tells you got the one option, this is it. So you have to really look at what you want to buy, how much money you've got to work with, whether you can afford to get what you want, and what kind of loans you can be approved for. That will shape your options right there. And also some people have more comfort with risk than others. So part of it's what you're comfortable doing. Part of it's what you're qualified to do. But at some point, you're going to have to get clear about this is how we're going to proceed. Now, it may not work out that way, but you got to start somewhere. Right. So you make your plans accordingly. You figure out how you're going to handle the first part, and then you start looking for a house, and you get pre-approved for financing based on the option you're choosing to sell your house.
Okay. Now, when you look for a property and write a contract, tell me a little bit more about that. Once the contract's accepted, what goes on, what are the next steps?
Well, first of all, when you're writing a contract to buy a house, you have to, once again, determine whether you're going to make a contingent on sell your house or not.
Okay. Those
are the options we talked about in the seller's video. So that has a great bearing on what you can write a contract for. But then you may have other contingencies. I mean, you have to determine how many contingencies you want to put in your contract, because they make your contract weaker or stronger. But you may need them to protect yourself. You've got to have good advice from your lender, your realtor, possibly your accountant, and maybe even an attorney.
Okay.
But the options for selling and buying are linked. They're not separate. Okay. Even though they're separate activities, they're basically linked into one project called buying and selling at the same time. I'm going to have some seminars on this because I think people need to really spend some time with it and understand this process in more detail. But this is just a brief introduction to the concept.
It's pretty complicated. I mean,
well, it is.
As we're talking, it's like, is there any other advice? I mean, I'm almost overwhelmed at all the different kinds of things that one would have to go through.
It is complicated. My best advice to people is to plan.
Yeah.
Start as early as possible. Get advice on what to do with your home so it will sell, which takes time and money. To plan when you're going to do this. Timing does matter. There's a peak time for buying. There's a peak time for selling. There's a peak time for doing both. And that does matter. And it can have a greater impact on how much money you wind up working with. You should definitely assemble a small team of people. Contractors, agents, lenders, attorneys, accountants, to help you with all the different aspects of this so that you basically have a sound, well thought out plan. And that is the best thing to do, and it's never too early to do that. Okay. Some of my clients talk to me a year before they do anything, but that's good. Then you have a good plan.